What's up, Benchwarmers? We're recording this episode at home for you. My name is Diego, and I'm joined on this one with Gat and Marco that are also on your screens. We're going to talk about everything that happened in the international break, some of the bombshells that happened with some of the teams in the Prem across the 5 leagues. We'll see how our national teams have been doing across these matches. There's some bright news, though, for the Hall of Fame inductions and a bit of controversy in terms of rule changes, but we're going to go over all of it. I don't have a whistle as Eric would normally, but right now we're going to get into it for you. Guys, we had a good 2 weeks off from the Prem. The matches are going to start again. It feels like, I don't know about you guys, but it feels almost like there's 10 games to go. Like it feels, I feel nervous, almost like anxious. And I wanted to pose the question to Marco. This is do or die. The credit has to be given to Arsenal that they're still in pole position. They have a decent cushion now after what looked like to be a bit of a roller coaster, a bit of a tumble, and City kind of breathing down their necks. Now they have this nice little point cushion, 10 games to go. And I don't want to beat a dead horse because we've asked you several times over about when you're going to say when. So instead, the question is, with 10 games left, how are you feeling? What's your gauge at?
I feel more nervous than I would like to, just based off the small little injuries that we got right when we got kicked out of Europa. I'm hoping, I think we were discussing before we start recording, I'm hoping Saliba should be back pretty soon, if not this game, then the next week or so. And yeah, man, I'm still nervous. It's as much as we've been phenomenal this season so far, you still have that kind of like memory of what happened towards the end of last season, and you don't want to relive that. And it was harsh times. It felt like we were right there. We touched the possibility of being in Champions League, and just 2 weeks, 3 weeks just went downhill for everything. So I'm nervous. But I am hopeful that we can succeed in this last push of the last 10 weeks.
We got Gabriel Jesus coming back into the side. It looks like, obviously, with some of the injuries on the defensive end, it could be a bit of a worry. Hopefully those players get back in time. But as far as your attacking options, does that make you feel a bit more confident to try to get through what seems to be at least the games that are coming up? If off the top of my head, maybe the next 3 or 4 games that are a bit difficult. I believe Liverpool comes in the next 3, something like that.
Yeah, so we have Leeds coming up this weekend, and then right after that, Liverpool. I believe we have at some point Southampton, and once after Southampton, we have City, Chelsea, Newcastle, and Brighton back to back, all 4 of them. So that
you have West Ham right before Southampton in between,
okay,
right after Liverpool.
Yeah, so we have like the next. I mean, Liverpool. With Liverpool is kind of like a wild card. You don't know what's going to happen. So we have quite some games to play. I wouldn't say we have anything from here on out isn't easy. I think it has to be well fought. I did see an image of Tierney coming off a game after the international break. So that's, I don't know if he's I haven't checked, but I don't know if he's good, if it was just a knock. But with that, it would be 3 injuries. We already know that Tommy's out for the rest of the season. I believe he has a surgery already. Already mentioned Saliba, hopefully being out back soon. But he said, I mean, technically as of this moment, he's still out injured. And then with Tierney. So is it going to be hard? Yes. Can we do it? We've shown it so far. But again, I'm nervous and hopeful.
That's good. That's a good position to be in as far as having still a little bit of hope and looking at what the Arsenal boys can do. It seems like the interchangeability between Trossard, Martinelli coming back and scoring, that was a huge boost for Arsenal, especially losing. It looks like, I'm not sure if maybe it was a confidence thing with Nketiah, but definitely when Jesus was back fit, he was certainly going to be the first name on the team sheet before him. looking at it though, it's rough. They're about. I'm looking right now. I'm referencing what I pulled up. It's a handy little chart made by Opta Analyst, and they analyzed what the fixture runs look like for the last 10 matches for all 20 teams. And Arsenal are just about near the middle because they do have a few games in between, namely the Leeds one, which should be comfortable. Southampton, West Ham, those should be games that Arsenal can put away. But moving on past Arsenal and getting back into the swing of things, international break. And I like that you mentioned Tierney getting possibly taken off. It could have been maybe something more of a precaution, but we saw Scotland take a historic win over the international break over Spain. Scott McTominay with 2 goals. There was a clip. I don't know if you've seen it, Marco, but it's Tierney absolutely dusting Carvajal on the left wing, running right past him and putting the ball into the box. McTominay coming to smash that. There were some other international results that I'm pulling up now. And Gat, if you wanted to bring up how the South Americans did over this break, I can give you the floor for that.
I don't want to.
Why
Because
not?
because it annoys me that we finally beat South Korea in the wrong month.
Yes.
But so Uruguay did win 2-1. Apparently there's also news that we may or may not be getting Bielsa into the club, which will be interesting. It'll be interesting. If we do, I think it's what we need because we have been too defensive minded. Too many low block situations since Tavares years and years and years ago. So it'll be nice to have some free flowing attacking football, especially with a lot of the youngsters that we have that can definitely run. But I know Argentina off the top of my head, they did also stat pad their 7-0 against Curacao.
Yes.
Didn't they do a whole ceremony now that they were back at home for a game after they won or am I wrong? I didn't watch anything.
No, they did. I think they did.
They
Right?
did. And most of the squad recreated Emi Martinez's celebration with the World Cup trophy.
Nice.
And they were definitely excited about that. There was a whole chaos that happened when Messi ended up trying to go get some dinner
I saw that
in public, and he was swarmed. So that was crazy. And 7-0, like you said. There were some other results that I'm looking at right now too. Belgium winning over Germany 3-2. Colombia over Japan, and these were like head-to-head matches where they basically faced the same opponent. Ecuador, Colombia, and Uruguay, all of them facing Australia, Japan, and South Korea respectively, basically in a 2-legged friendly fixture. So we saw Ecuador take a loss early on to Australia in the first go around, and they turned it around and went 2-1. Japan and Colombia playing out to a draw and a win for the Colombians afterward. And then there was some of the European qualifiers, which was where we looked at Scotland and Spain. There was a few other things that had happened in those qualifiers that I did want to bring up before we move on to CONCACAF and the North American teams. England 2-0 over Ukraine. And we see it was Harry Kane and Bukayo Saka getting on the score sheet for that one.
Madison finally got his international cap too, and he did fairly well.
And I believe also Tony, no?
Yes, he did play.
Did he play? I don't know if
Yes.
I know he was there. I don't know if he ended up playing or not. Oh,
yes,
nice.
Yeah,
Tony made an appearance in the 81st minute for England, finally getting his cap and representing the side. Speaking of England and some of the other controversy, just to talk about that really quick, we have Balogun posting on social media, "Go where you're appreciated," he said. Go where people actually give you your flowers. And it looked like he had abandoned all hopes or all intent to represent the English side. And he looks very, very likely to join the U.S. men's national team. Portugal and Luxembourg, 6-0. What happened?
Or Ghana.
Or Ghana, really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Portugal and Luxembourg playing out to a 6-0. The Netherlands 3-0 over Gibraltar.
Another stat padding in Luxembourg.
There was an interesting stat for the Netherlands game, and I want to make sure that I reference it.
Weghorst playing center back.
The Netherlands took 52 shots.
12 on target.
12 on target, and they scored 3 goals. And there was a moment, a viral moment, which I thought, like, and I want to know what you guys think. It was a reporter, maybe it was just, I don't know, maybe it's like a Dutch temperament or whatever, because he didn't seem to take it in an offensive way. But the reporter goes up to Valvekhorst at full time, and he obviously brings up the fact that he hadn't scored, even though he essentially played. And he asks him in Dutch, if you had played for 48 hours, do you think that you would have eventually scored, basically? And I was like, damn, that's rough. So how would you take a question like that, guy? If you're a striker, you know your goals aren't coming, they come up to you and they say, well, listen, if let's say we extended the game for another 2 days, would you have eventually scored? Like, that's like a backhanded compliment almost, but how would you react to that?
Oh, I would take it in stride. I would say, hell yeah, absolutely, let's go. Blow the whistle. I'll head back on the pitch right now.
Marco, would you snap back, or would you take it with a bit of a grain of salt? What kind of comment that would be?
I would, if I had something, because I mean, I would love to snap back. Honestly, I think it would be hilarious to be able to snap back with just a silly comment. But if I can't produce anything at that moment, I'd literally say exactly the same thing as what Kat said. You know what? Let's run it back, blow the whistle. Let's start. Let's make those 24 hours count right now.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm looking at some of the other results. He did answer in I guess in a humble way, saying that he basically just didn't put the ball in. He didn't take any excuse route and saying that he was unlucky or anything. He just straight up said, I couldn't put a ball in the net. And the reporter kind of backtracked a little bit and said, yeah, it looked like the ball didn't want to go into the net. But moving on past that, some of the other results from the previous match day, Spain still taking a 3-0 win over Norway in the first one. Scotland 3-0 over Cyprus. Sweden and Belgium playing out to a 3-0 Belgium win. Italy and England was one that I thought was going to be a bit more widespread, I guess, maybe the game itself. But we have Luke Shaw taking a double yellow to get red carded and sent home early. Some black dark arts tactics right there. Declan Rice and Harry Kane taking his penalty. This was the game, if I'm not mistaken, was this the game that he surpassed Rooney? Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was.
And I think this is a good way to kind of we still have to talk about CONCACAF really quick, but to segue a little bit into Kane, Spurs, and that whole situation, because there's a lot to talk about there. Kane becoming your all-time scorer for your national side over Rooney. I think it was 184, the record now. We're looking at Kane's CV, at his resume, at his career, and he has a Premier League Golden Boot. I think he has also a World Cup Golden Boot. He's also Spurs leading scorer, now England's leading scorer. Do you take his career over, say, someone like Jamie Vardy, who has won the league? He's won, I believe, also League Cup. And there was a moment where he did put in a good amount of goals for in all respect, a smaller side in Leicester, comparing just maybe even financially to Spurs. But we're looking at Vardy and Kane. Kane just achieved this international break where he's England's all-time scorer. Marco, do you take Vardy's career or do you take Kane's career? Which one is more glory for you?
I'd take Vardy. Just the story behind it. It's so much different. It's coming from nothing, fighting your way up to becoming a Premier League champion, and then also EPL. I believe they would what was the trophy that they won? FA, the FA Cup trophy. Being crucial for your team, having a phenomenal couple seasons, and sticking to one team. I mean, Kane did it too, but it's so much better.
Now
the Vardy party, man.
Vardy party, but you got to give me something for Kane, guy. You have to play devil's advocate because I don't want to alienate all of our Spurs listeners right now who shut us off telling
You're
us that we
you're
have the
ask-
all-time leading scorer and he's not in the conversation. Well, what's an argument
you're
for Kane that you can give me?
you're deferring to the wrong person.
I mean, and
I
it's
guess
hard for Gat even to say it because how many times have we? I mean, me personally have said he should have left a while ago. We always joke around the fact that Josue said, "Oh yeah, he's about to leave in what 2
two
years."
2 to 3 years. He'll
2 to 3
leave
years,
soon
yeah.
in 2 to 3
He's
years.
leaving
I'm like,
soon, yeah.
bro, I've said it. He had to leave 2 coaches ago when Pochettino left. That's when he should have left,
I
and
agree.
he didn't.
I agree.
But
I mean,
yeah, please play
I
devil's
guess,
advocate.
I guess I can try. I mean, yeah, we can't just discount the fact that he's breaking all these records. I mean, it's a great achievement in his own right. I mean, just the fact that he's doing his best to drag England over the finish line, but he just doesn't have the help above him to do so. And I mean, Southgate. But I mean, just in his own right, just achieving those records is phenomenal. I mean, unfortunately, he doesn't have anything else to show for it, but he's still proving that he's a force to be reckoned with, and he's still a complete striker, and he just needs the right fit, whether it's managers above him, teammates around him, or just a completely different new scene.
Well, we'll touch on Kane, and that was a decent attempt, guy. I'll give you credit for that. I'll give you credit for that. We'll move on just to wrap up the international fixtures. Looking at the CONCACAF Nations League matches that happened over this break. I believe for the first time, I would like to say in history, as far as maybe even for the Gold Cup, but it's the first time that all the Central American teams have qualified together. And if I'm not mistaken, that includes Guatemala, that includes El Salvador, that includes Honduras, and it includes Nicaragua, who qualified with a very historic. It was very emotional, actually. If you guys had seen, maybe if you had caught the highlights for their return fixture, it was against Trinidad and Tobago. They basically worked to secure a draw, and they're in. And they're in at the expense of it. The Final Four, or supposedly that's what they're calling it. I'm not sure why they're using what I think is actually like a basketball term or a basketball tournament term in the Final Four. But the semifinals for the Nations League qualifiers are between Panama, Mexico, Canada, and the United States. Mexico and the United States facing head-to-head, and Panama and Canada going head-to-head as well.
That Canada-US final is gonna be nice.
Hey, you know what? I would like to touch on that just really quickly, because looking at these teams, and this is a nice little stat that I had looked up just to start the conversation that I mentioned before recording. It looks like both Canada and the United States have surpassed Mexico's national team in terms of team value. So the players that are comprising these national sides have now eclipsed what Mexico has currently on their roster. And honestly, I wouldn't expect anyone else to watch these games if they're not rooting for this national team. But looking at the 2 matches that Mexico had, and it was essentially a tie, and a very, very narrow win for Mexico in the last 2 matches. It was a tie against Jamaica, and then a 2-0 win over Suriname, which was uneventful. We'll see in June how these teams are going to look when they go head to head. It's I don't know. It doesn't look very hopeful. It doesn't look very bright. Canada, on the other hand, and the United States both look like they're going to be firing on all cylinders, despite what happened with Berhalter, which we can chat about in a little bit. But that wraps up what was essentially our break. We're getting back to club footy. We're moving on to what we like to talk about in the Premier League, and Marco has a thought.
I do want to bring something up, and it's something that I recently just saw this past week. The second fixture happened throughout this past 2 weeks, I believe. I don't know if you've noticed it. We don't really watch it, so it's curious to me how good and bad football, soccer is around in the US. I mean, MLS has been pushing to grow, and yes, it has an expanding stuff like that. But when you have a league called CONCACAF Champions League, and you have a team like Austin FC.
Oh yes,
You've heard this. I don't know. Have you heard about this guy?
yes, I
Bro,
have. Go ahead, run it.
Austin FC are part of this CONCACAF Champions League, which is, I believe, 4 teams, the top 4 teams of Mexico, the top 4 teams of US, a team from Haiti, a team from DR, I believe, and I believe there's some other countries that are involved, but it's mostly CONCACAF. Well, they had it's very simple. I mean, it's not simple. They had to have a couple games. The thing is that they end up in the round of 16. Austin FC has to play against Haiti's team, which is Violeta Football Club. Violet Football Club.
That's right.
This team has not played in over a year. Violet has not played over a year. The last time they played was at the beginning of March of 2022. The league president, I believe, was accused of some sexual harassment, and they closed the league. Something, I mean, don't quote me on it. I believe that's what the video said. So this team had not played at all. And you have to also remember, Haiti had a bad earthquake the past year, and then the team was from a town that had a really bad effect. So they didn't even have a home pitch, so they had to go to DR to play their home game. It's a 9-hour drive. More than half the team have a secondary job. Yes. So what does Austin FCs do? Well, they're concerned about their safety going to DR. So they're like, oh, we'll just send our second squad. So they did send the second squad. Violet FC Football Club, I don't know how they do it. They beat Austin FC 3-0. Crazy, right? All right. Well, now they have to travel over to the US and play in Austin FC's home. Austin FC has spent millions this past couple of years since they came up. They have a brand new stadium. They've invested millions in the team and everything. Violet FC can't bring more than half their team over to the US because of visa problems.
That's crazy, man.
More than half their team can't fly in. So what do? They start recruiting for day contracts within the USA that have a connection to Haiti. There was 2 players that came from Jersey. One played in a league with a team with Motown.
Yes, FC Motown.
FC Motown. It was a right back, I believe, right back or left back. And then another player that doesn't participate in USL, it participates in the league underneath it. And his coach has some connection to Haiti and allowed him to go play for this team. So they, around the US, they were able to find a team. I think they presented themselves with 14 to 16 players to play against Austin FC. And the end result is 2-0. Austin can't beat them. They basically parked the bus, had 11 players behind the midfield line, and Austin FC were only able to score 2 goals, and they had their full squad on the pitch. They were able to score 2 goals. That means that Violet FC or Football Club is now having to go to Mexico to play against Leones for the quarterfinals. And that's going to be a whole bigger dilemma, because I don't know if they're going to have to go play DR again at home and then go to Mexico. I don't know if they're going to have the same visa problems that Mexico had, that they had coming into the US. But I wanted to bring it up because to me, it's very interesting how will overtake anything. If you have will, you find a way, and they found a way. And I was surprised, and at the same time, like they deserve it, man.
They do deserve it. They do deserve it. That's an incredible story. Yeah, it looks like his name was Samuel Pompey or Pompey. The the winger, the wingback from FC Motown that was allowed to go play. There's a few other guys also. I knew that Austin FC had lost, but I had no idea it was this dramatic, and that they
Bro,
literally
yes.
started scouting for players
They
the
had
day
to
of.
bro, the fact that these players haven't played in a year.
In a year, yes.
They
yes,
didn't even play
too.
like friendlies. All they were worried about is just training and being fit for the game. And yeah, man, a lot of them had to figure out a new schedule because a lot of them they're not getting paid. There's whatever team they're in are not paying them because there's no league. The league is canceled.
That's wild. I
So,
mean,
it's crazy.
It's a small sample size, but as a gauge, have you guys watched any MLS matches this season?
I've watched one.
I can't.
But it's hard to watch.
I can't tell you the last time I watched an MLS match. It was
probably we're screwed now.
I mean, I think fully end to end, the last time I watched an MLS match was probably the Metro Stars.
I watched one. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. I watched one NYCFC game, but we're screwed now because Apple has it. So
yes, that's
there's a double paywall.
That's nuts. That's
crazy, right? It's crazy. There's a double paywall. Not only do you have to pay to have Apple TV,
then you got to pay.
Then you have to pay for the season of fucking, and that's another like $100 or something. It's I believe it's $100 or it's like $60 a month, something ridiculous like that. But the thing is that you can see every single game, which I mean to me is bullshit.
I mean, either way, if you pay for all of that and they're trying to hide the value of it by, oh, you have access to everything, you can't physically watch all of them at the same time. If they happen, if the kickoff is at the same time, maybe you can watch them staggered if you really are that committed. But I just think that my personal opinion on that Apple deal is just going to bring, it's going to come about the beginning of the end, whenever that is. It's just going to bring it about sooner. The fact that the league, our own league, isn't able to be watched by and consumed by people that actually live here. And to have to
be like,
that
only, I'm gonna start watching the league this year. Oh wait, I have to pay how much? Nah, never mind.
Not only do you have to pay to play soccer in the US, now you have to pay just to watch it.
Just to watch it.
I mean, we're already doing with Peacock, but I prefer to pay Peacock to fucking Apple.
And the thing is that, like, I remember on our bench, we had quite a negative reception too when Peacock started out, but a few years in, it's not that bad. They have Goal Rush. They do have access to replays. The actual streaming as a service isn't that bad either. The coverage is pretty decent. Their commentary team, like, I feel like they treated it with baby gloves enough so that a few years down, we're not complaining about it. But something like this, I just think from the get, if you're already putting down over $100, that's already asking too much, no matter how many paywalls there are. But speaking of getting paid, you know who got paid? Conte, baby. Conte got his paycheck. Spurs announced that based off of a mutual consent, they have decided to part ways with the serial winner in Antonio Conte. Do you guys remember where you were when you heard the news? Do you remember what you were doing?
What was it? When did the news come out?
So I can tell you right now.
It was a week or the weekend, right?
I was up, and obviously because of the time difference, the first tweets hit like around 4:15 in the morning.
Okay.
And I was waiting for it. I literally just sat up. Like, I had woken up randomly. I saw it on my phone, and like I sat up and I waited like an hour to send it to everybody, and then freaking JG beat me to it. I was like, damn.
Yeah,
that's
so
crazy.
That was
me. That's crazy.
Was it you?
Oh, that was you?
Okay.
That's crazy.
So I saw it.
JG.
It's 5 in the morning, guys.
Don't
5 in the morning. Come on.
Don't ever.
Give me some slack.
It's not JG, it's JS.
JS.
So thank you because of you, I saw it and there was a big smile on my face. I'm like at the first I was like, fuck,
yeah, this
is
Sunday.
hilarious. Like I'm happy, and then I'm like, fuck, that means that they might have a bounce back. That means that Sunday they might get a better coach, different football style. Kane's never leaving. I'm kidding. But I smiled. I had a grin to run from ear to ear, bro. I thought it was hilarious the fact that motherfucker left.
There's
Yeah.
also a very interesting stat. Did you read about that guy? That he's become the fifth, I want to say, I'm going to look it up right now, the fifth manager to lose his job immediately after playing Southampton.
Oh wow, no, I did not see that. That's funny.
Yeah,
So don't sleep on Southampton, bro. They're killers.
I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm gonna look it up right now.
It
But
says Southampton. It's what he said, but okay, yes, Southampton is the
No. Just give Southampton credit. Good
Just
job,
put it
Ruben
on them.
Salas.
Just put it
Good
on
job,
them.
Ruben Salas.
So you had woken up to the news, Gat, since you said that you were the one that sent it first, I guess. Whatever.
I just remember. That's
on the
literally on the freaking on the Bird app is I spend most of my time with all my fantasy updates. So I refresh that app like a million times a day. So whenever I came across it, I just sent them immediately. I don't think I was doing anything, but it was nice. It was nice to see, and it's great because Diego, we were almost in this position when everyone was. I mean, and even Eric and everybody was like, "Oh, just take Conte." When it was our turn to find somebody, and I'm so glad we waited.
Yeah,
I'm so glad.
I'm glad we waited too. I really am glad we waited too. I can't find it. I want to reference it another time though, because I don't want to get stuck up on it, because there is quite a few things to talk about when it comes on this this news. It was after a 3-3 draw with Southampton in the league. We all talked about, and we heard his very famous rant about how it's basically the history of the Tottenham, that you cannot play like this. There's no passion, there's no fight, no spirit. And he left, like, okay, mutual consent, I feel like it's something that actually may have happened, although like it was very odd to see some outlets reporting that he was sacked, other outlets saying that they both agreed on it to mutually part ways. Whatever way you cut it, his contract was due to expire in the summer. They did have to cut it short, so there was a payout, and that was something that I was alluding to in the beginning. It was a short message from Daniel Levy saying that essentially they had cut ties. They have 10 Premier League matches remaining, and they have a fight on their hands to qualify for the Champions League. They have to all pull together and remain loyal to the club, all this other stuff. So let's see. Conte, 76 games as manager for Spurs, 41 victories collected while suffering 23 defeats, guided them to a top 4 finish last season, secured qualification for the Champions League, but fell short when it came to bringing a 15-year wait for silverware to an end. They play their next match away to Everton. Conte joins a very specific list of managers that have won trophies at every club that they've gone to, except for Spurs. So he is now number 2 on the list, joining Jose Mourinho, who have won a trophy at every single club they've managed, except for Tottenham Hotspur. But regarding a win that he did have was for his payout. And this was something that TalkSport had brought up. That's where I'm referencing the numbers from. But essentially, they had put together a list that was comprised by Andre Villas-Boas, Tim Sherwood, Pochettino, Mourinho, Nuno Santo, and now Conte. They have close to a total of 51 million pounds spent on paying their sacked managers, with Jose Mourinho getting the biggest pot of them all with 20 million. It's not quite exactly how much Conte is going to get. I've heard somewhere around 8, but I don't think that information has come out yet. I may be wrong, but this is essentially over the last 10 years how much they've spent on manager sackings. There was actually something that I did want to put in there, since it's not, I don't want it to be all gloom and doom, so to speak, but it was Heung-min Son coming out with a statement saying that he felt personally responsible for the fact that Antonio Conte got sacked because he wasn't playing to his best. And he comes back to being the Premier League's darling that nobody can hate on, because here he is taking the shot for a manager that couldn't get the dressing room together. But we move And we move on to the next thing, and that was more drama, because it was a drama-filled international break, despite the fact that it was no club soccer. There's a lot of news with clubs, with Julian Nagelsmann getting the news. What was it, Gad? On social media, you had the synopsis
On social
Can you do
media,
a
all the
play by
news.
play of how he rolled over in his bed, looked at his alarm clock, and then
That's literally it. He wakes up and sees all the notifications from Twitter, all his mentions, all his ats, and he opens it up and he sees all of these reporters, all these news outlets. I think even Fabrizio was in there too, saying that Bayern are in talks to sign Tuchel to replace Nagelsmann. And then there was a poor video. Someone took a video of him pulling up into the Bayern parking lot the day after. That's fucked.
You have to go get his stuff, bro. You have to go get walk away with his
How
box.
fucked is that?
You
Like
gotta get security to walk him in, you know.
you find
Yeah.
you find out that you're going to get fired from the internet before, and then you have to walk into your job already knowing that this is what's happening because you were already told beforehand. That's ridiculous.
Welcome to the business of the blue car world, bro. No, I think it's funny. I think it's funny because it kind of, even though it's not exactly the same thing, or the steps aren't the same thing. Kind of reminded me a little bit of when Poch was sacked by Spurs, because they already had Mourinho lined up. They already knew that Mourinho was going to come in, because not even 24 hours after the sacking of Poch was Mourinho already signed. So they already had that coach that to come and replace. But in this case, they kind of fucked up. They might have done it the same way they did with Poch, fire him 24 hours later, say, "Hey, Tuch is here." But hey, man, the media got a hold of it, got a whiff of it, and they basically informed the dude that
But I mean, in Bayern's defense, I mean, only 8 wins out of the last 10 games for Nagelsmann. That's just not good
I mean,
enough.
that's horrible,
Nag,
man. Like, what
he
is he
not
doing?
advancing to the next round in the Champions, not good
not good
enough.
enough.
He didn't win the league after the first game, months ago. That's not good enough. So I
Not
mean,
good enough.
That's
There
great.
is.
And yeah, say that Real Madrid is demanding.
Well, here we go. Tinfoil hat time, guys.
Yes.
If you want to put it on real quick.
I don't know how it's tinfoil, but yes.
The conspiracy is, and I heard this theory. I went down the rabbit hole a little bit to entertain it, and I liked it. So that's why I have it bookmarked here so I could read it out to you guys. It was the girlfriend. Just hear me out. It was the girlfriend that did him in. Julian Nagelsmann separates from his wife. I'm not sure of how long the relationship was, but the idea here is that he gets together with Lena Würzenberger, a reporter from Bild, the famous German newspaper, for many leaks, for many inside scoops. And it was a conflict of interest that had come up as early as, I believe, summer last year. However, on March 18th, Nagelsmann said, "We have a mole in our team." I like that. I like the tinfoil background. He says, "We have a mole in our team." Why? Because the entirety of the Bayern tactics were leaked with full color photos of tactics and passing routes in the German newspaper. And he vowed to get a hold of this mole, whoever it is. However, back in the summer of the year prior, this conflict of interest in the relationship he had with Lena Würzenberger was identified, and she was taken off the Bayern beat because specifically she wasn't just a reporter, she was a reporter that focused on Bayern München Football Club. I'm not sure if that's how you say it in German, but it's definitely Bayern München. And so what she does after this, after this leak, it turns out that Nagelsmann is fired. And very conveniently, it is reported the same day that Lena Würzenberger has left her post entirely at German newspaper Bild to pursue a new career with the German automakers, I believe BMW. But either way, what happens here is that let me see this here. Before the match, you like the images, like the full spread, the players identified, the passing routes. Dating the Bild journalist, it looks like it was very suspicious from the get-go. And so some people say that they weren't happy with the fact that he was dating this person who could be leaking the information to the newspaper. And then it came out that Sadio Mane had a tete-a-tete. I know that's French, but still, he had basically, I don't know how to say it, had that phrase in German, but he basically went head to head,
face to face, something like that.
Yeah. Face to face with Nagelsmann over basically unrest, disgust, and unwillingness to accept his coaching tactics and his positioning for him, his involvement in the team. And now Nagelsmann is someone else's problem. Where he's going to end up, we don't know. But this conspiracy was very interesting, to say the least, to listen and say that maybe it was the reporter girlfriend that did him in for not being happy with him. Maybe they had a fight over who was supposed to take out the trash. And she's like, you know what? Time for you to get a new job. She leaked the tactics. She was tired of him leaving his shoes by the door when he had to put them on the shoe rack. She was tired of him not rolling what's another petty one? She was tired of him not squeezing the toothpaste from the end of the tube and instead from the middle of it. She had it with him and she got him fired. So
maybe she just wanted to like you said, find a new job, but maybe the auto industry might not be the one, because rumor has it that he might end up at RM.
No.
That's what I've heard. That's what I read. Sorry, not heard. I've read it. Based off of the season
first
that
first it was Spurs, and then now it's RM.
Yeah, based on the season Arteta is having, most likely not winning the league because Barcelona's going to walk away with it, and depending on where he ends up in the Champions League, there's a possibility that he might not be there. That's next season. So we are looking for somebody. I mean, I mentioned it last recording. Arteta Eric looked at me sideways. One, because we don't want him to go. Two, because he's a Barca guy. But the rumors start to come out. Is it true? I mean, again, they're fucking rumors. Who knows? But I mean, there's a possibility. How we say, cuando el río suena, porque piedras lleva.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So, whether or not Nagelsmann, I mean, it was also reported that it looks like they were trying to start building. Let's see, it says here, they're planning to build a property on the picturesque Lake Tegernsee, situated in the Bavarian Alps. He had ended a previous marriage of 15 years just late last year, and he has 2 children from that marriage. It was completely set aside that he was then dating this reporter girlfriend. It was apparently very clear that some of the players felt uncomfortable with this relationship with the manager and this reporter. But she did join BMW. She's now going to be a spokesperson for their sustainability wing, department, whatever it may be. So that's going to be as of April 1st. She's going to be starting her new job. Whether or not Nagelsmann goes to Real Madrid, it remains to be seen. What if he ends up at Spurs? What do you guys think about that?
Finally, different type of football?
I would think so, because I feel like that was a decent question to ask. Like, would you go attacking? Would you switch it up? I feel like at least the tactics, the ethos, whatever you want to call it, of recent managers has been fairly defensive minded. And yes, you can talk about identity of the club and all this other stuff, but
is it though? Is the identity of the club a defensive style counter-attack play, or has it been for the last 2 coaches? Because I don't think Poche was like that.
I that's the thing. I don't think he was. I feel like maybe
might have been conservative. I don't think he was.
I don't
park the bus and then just pick it up, have a fucking Kane receive it, and then kick it to the side to see if his son or somebody else can score the goal.
I don't know. I really don't. I feel like maybe they tried to go the offensive and proactive route with Poch. They got to the like La Cima, they got to they scaled the mountain, and when they got to the top, they realized that they were going to fall over. And now they kind of hit back into their shell. Let's get some pragmatic coaches. Let's get some coaches that, try to secure the win, not take too many risks. Let's play it safe. Let's get some trophies in the cabinet and then build from there. And it looks like that hasn't worked. Obviously, we can say now, hindsight glasses are extremely clear. We can say now that hasn't really worked out for them.
If you were a Spurs fan, what would you ask for? What would you demand? What would you be tweeting right now saying, now that Conte is out, who do we want next?
Who's
the next?
We want Poch. We want.
What do you,
bro? Like I just don't understand going back to Poch though. I really don't.
Neither do I. I also don't understand why Poch would go back to Spurs. They did him dirty.
I wouldn't either, because I know we spoke about how we, at least to us, when that happened, that we understood, or at least we felt on the bench, that he was hard done by. Like this man achieved a lot. I said it.
Yeah,
he achieved a lot with very little in this squad with the players he had available.
No money, no nothing.
And they kicked him off. They kicked him to the side. To the side. So I wouldn't go back. As a Spurs fan, I don't want to imagine myself in that scenario ever, in any multiverse that is pertinent to my reality. But if I were to answer the completely rhetorical question, I would like to see a fresh face. I think it's like Roy Hodgson. Roy Hodgson going back to Palace. Like, the thing is that, like, you can tell that it's a decision completely devoid of any planning, devoid of any risk, devoid of I think, like, they're just doing it entirely to be absolutely, whether it's going to work out for Palace or not, I don't know. That's a completely separate conversation. But I feel like those types of things are what you would expect from a team that's struggling. And would Daniel Levy like to admit that Spurs are struggling? Absolutely not. Would anybody on that team, would Harry Kane like to admit that Spurs are struggling? Definitely not, because he's going to look silly for not having left a couple seasons ago. And as far as what the rumors are for him leaving this summer, will remains to be seen.
Nice to have now 2 years.
The people who clearly were disappointed, though, were Bayern Munich, and putting a bow on that conversation, they're now moving forward. Thomas Tuchel being appointed. Let's turn it into something a little bit more positive so you can wrap up on the butt end of this episode. Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger, inducted, presented, and photographed for the Premier League Hall of Fame. I think it's one of those obvious picks, something that's very much well deserved. I know we had put in our predictions for the first players to be inducted, but now that Sir Alex and Wenger have now been put into the Prem Hall of Fame, give me 3 names of managers that you expect to be next, Marco.
Oh, fuck, man. Even though they're still currently coaching?
Right. Because they've, I guess it doesn't really matter if they've retired or not, but I would imagine that, like, when they even nominated, the idea was that they had nominated Sergio Agüero, I think. Or they were going to.
I definitely see Pep in there. Klopp would be another one that would definitely be in eventually.
Who?
Klopp.
Okay. Pep, Klopp. Who else?
Ranieri, maybe?
Ranieri?
I was thinking about him. Literally.
Why not?
Yeah.
Pep, Ranieri. Who are you switching for the other two, guys? If you're going to agree on Ranieri.
I don't know if I would, to be honest.
Are you the one that suggested him?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll just leave it. Just Klopp, Pep, and Ranieri, I think.
I mean, yeah, top 3. I mean, those are the ones, because everybody else hasn't had longevity like they have so far, right?
Yeah.
They've accomplished what Pep has accomplished for Man City, what Klopp has finally done with Liverpool, what Ranieri did for Leeds. those things you can't compare it to anything, and you can't compare, like, yes, winning a trophy, yes, Conte has won it for Chelsea.
What about Mourinho's Chelsea reign? No love for Mourinho at Chelsea?
Nah, man. Not
I
me
think
personally,
so.
no. I wouldn't put him up there. No.
I think so. I think you would definitely be put into the Prem Hall of Fame. That
Yeah, I
early
guess,
2000s, that early 2000s era for Mourinho was unmatched.
But when he
And
was
I think,
when he was with Chelsea?
yeah, when he was at Chelsea, yes.
Okay. I mean, if you're basing it off of that, but how long he was there for? Like, what, 2 years, 3 years, and he was out.
Yeah, 3 years and he was out, which
Yeah.
of course it definitely doesn't compare to 6-7 years. But
Exactly.
as far
But I
as
mean, you
as
can't
far as the
also.
impact,
We have Ranieri. They also just did, I think, what, 3 years. So we also
but they
can't, and he
achieved
never won
that.
anything.
That's the thing, they achieved. That's
Yeah.
the like the difference here that we want to try to put out.
Yeah.
I
mean,
guess we can
maybe.
leave it.
I mean, there's a possibility. I mean, I'm not the one that chooses them, but
Of
he
course.
wouldn't be my top choice. Basically, that's
Yeah.
basically that's what I'm going for.
We'll keep it as a small little short list for the next names, the next up that are going to come into the Hall of
Rodgers.
Fame. And as far as changes, speaking of changes to the Hall of Fame, there were changes that the IFAB had confirmed, and that's as of July 1st, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone listening, all of our listeners, you can no longer, as a goalkeeper, prevent the penalty kick taker from any sort of distraction that you provide. Essentially being that during penalties, goalkeepers can no longer touch the goalposts or the nets. So no more kissing your gloves, tapping the crossbar, pulling the net, doing a little sign of the cross on yourself, or touching it 3 times for good luck. You cannot delay. You can no longer delay the execution of a penalty. You can no longer unfairly distract the penalty taker with any salsa moves or little hip thrusts or anything like that. And any behaviors, this was a little bit odd, but apparently that any behaviors that fail to show respect was part of the report as far as what the rule change is going to be. We will see in July, however, what the actual text is, what the language is, which is going to be very important. And that wraps up all of our talking points, our news, the international break. We've gone over quite a bit, guys, for this episode. But we have 2 small things left for the end. We have some fantasy notes for you for this big double game week 29. This is the moment where all of our listeners and anyone on the bench that's together with us can look at their squads to prepare for the upcoming fantasy week. And we have the 3 matches that we are going to predict for this upcoming game week. So I think we can do the 3 matches at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll start with some of the notes that you have here, Gat, for fantasy. There's a specific template, I guess, for people that are going to bench boost or that are going to even free hit. There are some that are lucky enough to have their wild card if they're willing to use it, but there's a few things to consider. And so, Gat, I'll let you start and kick off this segment for our fantasy 15.
Yep. So you already highlighted it. This is a big double game week. This is going to be the biggest double game week of the season. There's not many more to come, but this is, a 12 teams double. So this is insane. So from a fantasy perspective, to bench boost or not to bench boost, that is the question. More often than not, you're going to see a lot of people bench boosting. From the get. Once, all the planners, Ben Krellin, James, Planet FPL, once they started getting really into the whole planning piece of fantasy, it was known for a long time that 29 was going to probably be the best double game week, the best one to bench boost. However, it is also unfortunate that it's also coming right off the back of an international break. So one thing you do want to consider is just wait for tomorrow for all of the last embargoed quotes and pressers that are still due to come, because there have been some injuries during international break, some serious ones, some maybe not so serious. So definitely wait till tomorrow, see what happens. I mean, just quick example, Botman apparently had a dodgy curry for the Netherlands. He was amongst like what 2, 3 players from the Netherlands that just fell ill for food poisoning or something, but he's expected to most likely be okay. But that's still hasn't been confirmed. We haven't gotten a presser from Eddie Howe yet. Rashford is another one just off the top of my head. He pulled out from the English squad, decided to go on holiday in New York City for a couple days, and then returned to light training the other day. So he's hopefully most likely set to be available. But moral of the story, just wait. Again, for most active teams out there, bench boosting is probably what you're going to end up doing because you probably have been planning this for quite some time. So what does that bench boost look like? I mean, ideally in a perfect world, when you are bench boosting, obviously, as the name implies, you're going to have all your bench players playing as well. So being a double game week, you're going to want all 15 of your players, if possible, to have 2 fixtures. Again, if possible. If you've been doing a lot of planning, then maybe you're in that boat now. But maybe not. You know, you do have players like Kane, Saka, they have single games in this double, but they're not that bad. Arsenal have Leeds, and Kane plays Everton, I believe, off the top of my
Everton, yeah.
head. So it's you don't have to have 15, in my opinion. If you've been planning and are going to bench boost, if you are on wildcard, if you are on free hit, then yeah, you can maximize and just put out a whole bunch of doublers. But there's definitely no need to rush out players like Kane and Saka or just Arsenal in general, because a lot of people probably still have 3 Arsenal. However, there has been a lot of noise around Saka specifically. A lot of people are focusing too much on the fact that this is a double game week. I want to maximize the 2 fixtures. So there's been a lot of talk of moving Saka onto Bruno. Just because Bruno does have a decent double game week. But again, it's everything disclaimer, everything is team specific. You know, Arsenal don't have a favorable run soon. You know, they have a couple games now to kind of get them to keep them ahead. But then they, you know, Marco was telling us earlier, they do play the likes of, you know, City again, they play Chelsea, they play Brighton, they play a lot of these tough teams. So a lot of people are trying to jump off of Arsenal now and just get ahead on either Brighton or United, because you know those teams do have quite a few doubles coming up. And just going back to Kane really quickly, just pulling up his next fixtures here, using the fixture difficulty rating from the Premier League site, he only has 2 red fixtures to end the season, and that is against Newcastle in game week 32 and Liverpool in game week 34. Every other fixture is either green or gray for it may be easy, it may not be easy. So he's still one that you still want to consider. He's been ticking along all season. You know, maybe not as we've hoped. You know, we're used to Kane and Spurs or mainly just Kane, you know, hitting worldies and bangers and just pulling out points like it's nobody's business. But he's been consistently getting 1 goal here and there, and he's up there in the points. He's up there in the goals for the season. So, you know, don't rush to get rid of him. I need a breath, so you can continue, Diego.
It looks like Kane is going to be someone that is going to stick in a lot of teams. Probably Saka taking the hit out of most teams. And I do agree with that sentiment that you don't want to be too nearsighted, or at least have some tunnel vision with this double. And it could be that these 2 players, specifically Kane and Saka, end up outscoring some of the players that are on a double, because you look at the forwards, some people are throwing out Solanke, some people are throwing out Danny Ings. And why not, if you do have Kane on your team, why not stick to that tried and true, who, like you said, has ticked all season. Taking hits, however, for this big double game week isn't something you should be too afraid about. There's going to be quite a few teams, quite a few managers that are going to take hits regardless. The ceiling for bench boost on a double game week is typically you want to hit somewhere between 20 and 25 points. But especially if you have a different kind of strategy and your chips limited, you want to try, if not, utilizing this double game week as a chance to reset your squad. because the points that you'll get from bench boosting can offset some of the changes, some of the transfers that you otherwise wouldn't have made because you're taking hits. So instead of it looking at, let's say, like a -12, a -8, or even some people that are crazy enough to do a -16, is not too far-fetched. You want to try to optimize your squad. And with the information that we've gotten for the double in 34, the upcoming blanks, the smaller doubles for the rest of the season for some of these other teams, I believe Brighton has 3 more double game weeks to be scheduled. Liverpool doubles, United doubles, City doubles. Some of these players you don't necessarily have right now because of previous game weeks that you've been trying to optimize. So utilizing the bench boost, or at least the excuse of the double game week to get those doublers now, can save you those transfers in the future, and you get the benefit of an extra game to kind of to roll the dice.
Really,
and that's specifically.
No, I was going to say really, really quickly too, just going back on the hits that you mentioned. I don't know if you maybe seen it yourself, Diego, but anyone who definitely follows fantasy in general might have seen it. But the Fantasy Premier League account actually posted earlier today, send us a picture of your best ever bench boost over the seasons. And there was one that really stuck out. Someone posted, I don't know if it was, I think it was like the 13-14 or 14-15 season of one of those. Someone had gotten 222 points off of a -20 in a double game week. So
Off a -20.
Off of a -20. So it's, hey, listen, double game week is one of the best times to take a hit. 12 teams are doubling. It's the biggest double. Go for it. Why not?
Yeah, it's obviously it's team specific, like Gat had said, very much a disclaimer, but you can definitely swing for a high ceiling. There's plenty of players that you can go for. Some of the highlighted names, even though I had mentioned Solanke or Ings, you're looking at the Brighton boys, Mitoma, March, McAllister. You're looking at some defensive assets even, or a forward for Chelsea, the most popular picks being Chilwell and Joao Felix. You also have Madison, which Gat had alluded to as well. Even Harvey Barnes making a shout for some teams. Ollie Watkins for Aston Villa. These are all players that have, at least for this double game week, a decent ceiling. The 2 matches may not be perfect as far as fixture difficulty, but this is as great of a chance as you can to actually roll the dice. So one last thing, as far as one player that a lot of squads happened to ditch at the beginning of the international break was Erling Haaland. Right now it's very unclear because that's the game that Pep likes to play. He wants to tell you he's touch and go. He wants to tell you that he's coming soon. He wants to tell you it's only going to be a few days or a few weeks or however long. And he keeps it basically under in his sleeve when Haaland is due back to the team. They do have a difficult fixture against Liverpool, and then sandwiched in between the Southampton and I think West Ham games, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe I'm thinking of another one. But there's 2 matches essentially that can be, I think it may be Leicester actually, that for City, they can have a break because they do play in the Champions League in the middle of them. So that's also something to keep in mind, that despite Haaland being fit again and able to start, will Guardiola want to start him with one eye on the Champions League knockouts that are coming very soon in April? Liverpool, as a change in gears, on paper they don't have a great double because the fixtures seem pretty difficult against City and Chelsea respectively, but it's also worth noting that they have more losses against the bottom teams than the top. They happen to step up when it comes to these more difficult matches, and Mohamed Salah does have a tendency to show up in these big games. He likes to score in these big games. He has a particular record against City as well. And one of the things that a lot of managers have come up with is the fact that Liverpool seem to be very close to their full strength side. So Diaz, Nunez, a lot of players that have been missing for a while, they're all coming back. And it'd be interesting to see what the push is for Liverpool, Klopp and his boys, now that their only focus right now is the Premier League. Taking them into consideration is something that you shouldn't really overlook. Now, the last thing is coming in captaincy. Gat, you can lead us through who are the most popular picks for the armband in this double.
So again, just wait for tomorrow, see what these pressers have to say. But right now, the one of the most informed players in the Prem right now is going to be, I think the last statistic I pulled up, there was a poll on Twitter, and like over half the people that answered the poll are going to go with Marcus Rashford. He is most likely going to be the most captain player for this double game week. However, again, pending fitness concerns, we'll see, if his leg training was more than enough to ensure that he plays as many minutes as possible in both of those games. However, next best, Brighton is definitely one to consider. So any of the Brighton boys, whether that be Mitoma, March, or Mac 10 himself, Alexis McAllister, I would personally vote Matoma. Disclaimer. But if you're chasing in any mini leagues, you can go a little bit rogue with the Brighton boys and go with McAllister, who's on pens. He's playing a little bit more advanced now. Or March, who does seem to have the underlying numbers, just I guess not getting as lucky as anyone has hoped. You can also go even more rogue and go Madison. Leicester do have a pretty decent double. I mean, just albeit it is Leicester, but they do play the new manager bounce or comeback manager bounce, Crystal Palace with Roy Hodgson, and they do play Villa at home as well. So it's not a bad double if you want to go with him if you're chasing a mini league. And also worth noting, 2 home games in this double for West Ham. So if you want to, balls to the wall, you can probably go Bowen as one of the options as well. But also, with double game week 29, you also want to keep in mind that blank game week 32 is also right around the corner. So you want to make sure that because of all the FA Cup results, that whatever moves you make now, you make sure you're also planning for weeks in advance and how you're going to maneuver around that blank game week in 32 as well, because you're probably going to load up on a lot of Brighton, a lot of United, and both of those teams do not play in 32. If you have a free hit, great. Disregard, just go ahead, free hit in 32, all is well. If you do not have a free hit, then you just want to keep that in mind to see how the heck you're gonna maneuver that game week as well.
It's going to be some big swings, guys. Some very big swings. As far as the draft league on our bench, it's essentially got first place, and that's all you need to know. The rest of us are fighting for the bottom of the barrel, if we even know that we're still in the barrel or still in this draft league. But just to bring that up and give an update and remain true to our commitment for the at least giving updates for the draft. That wraps it up, though. Make sure that you do play to win. Don't not play to not lose, if that makes sense. Don't be too conservative with it. Don't be too pragmatic with it. It's definitely it's fantasy. It's a time, especially double game weeks are a time for you to have fun with it and to take a little bit of risk. Go with
and even 29 games into the season, it is still unbelievably tight across the top 10K, the top 1K, the top million. It's crazy how tight it is. I mean, just one good game week and you can easily gain so much rank. So as Diego always says, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
always.
Especially this season with how tight it is and in every percentile. It's nuts.
Always. So that wraps up our fantasy 15 update, which we did do in a bit shorter time. That gives us a few minutes to go over what our predictions are going to be for this weekend. Guys, the game of the weekend, arguably the biggest game of the weekend, Liverpool versus Man City at the Etihad. Marco, I'm putting you in the hot seat. What do you think the score is going to be? Wait. I'll tell you this. I'll help you out. City have lost just one of their last 13 Premier League home games against Liverpool, with 7 wins and 5 draws. The last time they lost was 4-1 in November of 2015 under Pellegrini. And Liverpool are looking to make and complete the league double over City for what would just be the second time in the last 17 seasons, previously doing so in Jurgen Klopp's debut campaign in 2015-16. Liverpool have won more Premier League games against reigning champions than any other side. However, Manchester City have won their last 3 Premier League games and have yet to win 4 in a row. What are you thinking?
You know why I think about stats?
Out the window. But I'm
Correct.
letting you know that they're there, Marco, so you can give me a tried and true prediction for what you think the score is going to be.
1-1.
All right.
Gat?
Diego, it's good. You want me to go? City
Yes.
Liverpool. City Liverpool. If they can both lose, that'd be great. I'm gonna go with this is a tough one. 2-1 City. What say you?
Oh, man. I have an agenda. I have an agenda for this game, and the agenda is it could be one more game that Haaland blanks in because he has 10 left for his stupid little record that everybody swears he's gonna break.
Watch him get a hat trick.
He's
He's gonna be listening to this podcast tomorrow.
Stop jinxing it, bro. The more you bring it up, the more it's gonna be in his head, and he's gonna start scoring.
The last game of the season, the 10 goals he has left, he's gonna hit 10 goals on the last game of the season.
Exactly.
3-2 Liverpool.
Patrick.
3-2 Liverpool. Oh, R.I.P. Foden, appendicitis. He's gonna be out for a couple weeks.
3-2 Liverpool. I feel like it's gonna be high scoring. I feel like both teams have shown defensive frailties all season. But as far as like the head-to-head, it's been pretty high scoring. I'm gonna
I've
say
also seen them
Liverpool.
have very boring games in the past. So
yeah.
It's also
Okay.
It's also early kickoff. I'm sure Nick has something to say about the
don't
early
captain anybody on
kickoff,
early kickoff.
not on Liverpool,
never
not under the
captain.
lights or something crazy.
All right, next game to predict. Newcastle at home in their pinstriped jerseys, taking on Manchester United at St. James Park. Newcastle are winless in 6 games against United, 2 draws and 4 losses. But the last 2 have been draws. They've not gone 3 league games without defeat against the Red Devils since January 2012. However, United have won more Premier League away games against Newcastle than any other side, despite the fact that they've lost the last 2 of their last 5 such visits, having lost just one of their previous 13 matches in St. James Park. I'll go first this time. I'm going to say 2-1 United. I think Newcastle will score first, and I feel like United is going to make it difficult for themselves. But I hope that they can take the win. So I'm saying 2-1 United.
I guess I'll go next. 3-1 United. Faith in the boys. Rashford hat trick.
Jesus, Marco.
You know who you captaining. I'm debating between 2 results, but I'm gonna go with 2-2.
2-2. A 2-2 draw for Newcastle and Manchester United. The last game, and I think just to do it justice, after talking all this smack, Everton taking on Tottenham Hotspur. After speaking about all of the drama at Spurs, running the career for Harry Kane over the coals, it looks like, let's see, that Everton have won just one of their last 20 games against Spurs with 9 draws and 10 losses, last picking up a 1-0 away win in September 2020. Tottenham are now unbeaten in their last 9 visits to Goodison Park, although each of the last 3 have ended level.
I'll go first.
All right, you got it, Marco. What do you think?
3-0 Spurs.
3-0 Spurs?
2-1 Everton. It's gonna be some nice dice ball for the 2 counterattack goals.
Honestly, I like. The thing is that it's at Everton, so that's not too far fetched.
I'm hoping it'll be a good game. It's a Monday night game for them, Monday afternoon game for us. So hopefully it'll be good. Nice way to start on Monday.
Jesus.
Just say it, 3-0 Everton. Go ahead, it's fine.
I'm going 1-0 Everton.
I like it.
I'm going 1-0 Everton. I would hope that maybe, well, not hope. I think that there's a lot of drama going on the inside. It might be a bit much for Spurs to overcome. There's reports about their current director of football that was supposed to take over, Paratici, not being even eligible to take over the side because of his worldwide ban that FIFA confirmed should be upheld everywhere in the world after his involvement with the Juventus scandal. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving Everton too much credit, but definitely I feel like it could be a lot of turmoil for Spurs. But that's a good point to wrap it up. Gentlemen, any last thoughts that you have for this episode to share?
I don't think
Marco,
so.
Gat, nothing on your minds. We're ready for the butt end for the final stretch of the Premier League season to come up. And Gat has a parting thought.
One thing for fantasy related deadline, 6 a.m. on Saturday Eastern time. Do not forget.
Yes, do not forget the deadline to set your teams, choose your chips, and set your captains before the deadline hits at 6 a.m. Kickoff 7:30 Eastern for City hosting Liverpool. Don't forget to always get in touch with us, comment, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of our handles are in the description for this video. We'd like to see you engaging with us on Instagram, on our reels, and in the comments. Make sure that you have your voice heard on the bench. That's it for this episode. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Diego, joined by Marco and Gat on this one. We're the Benchwarmers, the bench with a voice, where the bench is always on. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.